My brother got my girlfriend pregnant. Then, my whole family defended them and demanded that I hand over my entire inheritance to support them. I said no and watched them all implode. Spread it. My brother slept with my girlfriend, got her pregnant, and now my entire family thinks I should bankroll their disaster with the inheritance my grandparents left me. Yeah, you read that right. Grab your popcorn because this gets messy. I'm 28 male, a certified public accountant working at a mid-sized firm in Denver. Not the most exciting job. I analyze financial statements, prepare tax returns, explain to clients why they can't deduct their vacation as a business expense, but it pays well and gives me stability. I own a small townhouse I bought 3 years ago, drive a reliable Honda CR-V that's paid off, and live within my means. My parents raised me and my younger brother, Kevin, 25 male, to be responsible with money, though clearly only one of us listened. Kevin's always been the golden child. Charismatic, outgoing, the kind of guy who could talk his way out of anything. Growing up, he was the star running back while I stayed late at the library. Mom and Dad never played favorites outright, but there was this unspoken understanding that Kevin was special. And I was dependable, the reliable one, the boring one. Guess which one gets you further in a family crisis? Not the boring one. Kevin's mistakes always became learning opportunities, while my minor imperfections were character flaws that needed correction. That was the dynamic. My grandparents on my mom's side passed away 2 years ago within 6 months of each other. Grandpa had a massive heart attack and Grandma just seemed to give up after that. They'd been married for 58 years. Their house and life savings came to around $340,000. Split evenly. We each got $170,000. My grandparents had lived through the Depression. Grandpa served in Korea, came back and worked at the same plant for 43 years. That money represented every sacrifice they'd ever made. They left a letter explaining this was meant to be our foundation. Buy a house, start a business, invest in our futures. Don't waste this on frivolous things. Grandpa had written. This represents every sacrifice we made so you boys could have better lives than we did. I took that seriously. Paid off my $45,000 in student loans immediately. Put $80,000 into index funds and bonds. Kept $40,000 as an emergency fund. Used the remaining $5,000 on final townhouse renovations. Boring, responsible, exactly what they wanted. Kevin blew through his entire portion in 14 months. First came the truck. Brand new Ford F-150 with all the upgrades. Around $65,000. Then trips to Vegas. Designer clothes. Expensive dinners where he'd pick up the tab for everyone. He even bought a jet ski he used twice before selling at a loss. When I asked about the spending, he'd shrug and say, "You only live once, man." Grandma and Grandpa would want me to enjoy life. Pretty sure they wanted the opposite, but Kevin's always been good at rewriting reality. By month 15, Kevin was borrowing money from our parents. By month 16, he'd moved back into their house. The truck got repossessed around month 18. None of this was his fault in his mind. Just bad luck, a few mistakes, some bad advice. Then there's my girlfriend. Well, ex-girlfriend now. Isabel. 26. Female. We'd been together for 3 years, living together for the last year and a half. Met her at a friend's wedding where she was a bridesmaid and I was a groomsman. Classic setup, but it actually worked. She caught the bouquet, I caught the garter, and we got pushed together for that awkward photo that's supposed to be cute. We ended up talking for 3 hours at the reception, exchanged numbers, and went on our first date 4 days later. She was fun, spontaneous, everything I wasn't. Where I'd spend Friday nights organizing my tax documents, she'd want to try that new restaurant downtown or check out a concert. I thought we balanced each other out. She helped me loosen up and experience life. I helped her be more grounded and responsible. Classic opposites attract situation that works great until it doesn't. Isabel worked as a dental hygienist at a practice across town, making around $52,000 a year. Decent money, but she had this habit of spending $60,000 worth of lifestyle. Always had the newest phone, expensive gym membership she barely used, subscription boxes for makeup and clothes, and organic snacks. Her car payment alone was $480 a month for a Nissan Altima she'd financed at a terrible interest rate because her credit wasn't great. I'd covered her portion of rent a few times when she was between paychecks. Her words, not mine. What that actually meant was she'd spent her paycheck before the next rent was due and needed me to float her until the following Friday. It started as a one-time thing, then became occasional, then became frequent enough that I'd built it into my monthly budget as an expected expense. She'd promised to pay me back. And sometimes she would. But mostly the debt just accumulated in this unspoken tab I was keeping in my head. We'd have conversations about budgeting where she'd nod and agree and then immediately go buy $200 worth of clothes at Target because they were on sale. The mental gymnastics were impressive. Saving 30% on something you don't need isn't saving money, it's spending money. But try explaining that to someone who doesn't want to hear it. Looking back now, I can see all the red flags I ignored. How she'd get defensive when I suggested tracking our expenses or setting financial goals. How she'd make comments about me being too serious about money, like wanting to retire someday, was some kind of personality defect. How she'd complain that Kevin knew how to have fun while I was always worried about the future. She'd say things like, "Your brother knows how to live in the moment," or, "Kevin doesn't stress about every little thing like you do." Should have seen where that admiration was headed, but I was in love and optimistic and convinced we could work through our differences. Classic mistake. The revelation came on a random Tuesday in March. I'd left work early because I had a dentist appointment at 3 p.m. that got cancelled. They called around noon saying their equipment was malfunctioning and they needed to reschedule. So, I figured I'd surprise Isabel with takeout from her favorite Thai place. Grabbed spring rolls, pad Thai with chicken, drunken noodles with tofu, the whole spread. Spent about $40 trying to be spontaneous and romantic. Felt good about being the fun boyfriend for once. Walked into our townhouse around 2:30 p.m. and immediately knew something was off. Isabel's car was in the driveway, which was weird because she was supposed to be at work until 5. The front door was unlocked, which we never did during the day. Then I heard it. Sounds coming from upstairs that no man wants to hear coming from his own bedroom. Rhythmic creaking voices, the unmistakable sounds of two people who thought they had the place to themselves. I stood in the hallway for probably 30 seconds. The food getting cold in my hands, brain trying to process what was happening. Part of me wanted to turn around and leave, pretend I'd never come home early, preserve the illusion of my relationship for a few more hours. But I'd spent 3 years with this woman, paid for half her life, and I deserved to know the truth. I walked up those stairs like I was climbing toward my own execution. Each step felt heavier than the last. My heart was pounding, but my hands were steady. That weird dissociative state where you're aware of everything happening, but it doesn't quite feel real. Open the bedroom door to find exactly what you'd expect. Isabel and Kevin both scrambling to cover themselves. Faces showing that perfect mixture of shock and guilt and panic. The bedroom I'd furnished with the queen-sized bed I'd bought from a local furniture store. The nightstands I'd assembled from flat-pack boxes. The lamp I'd picked out. My own brother and my girlfriend in my bed in my house. Kevin was still wearing his socks. That's the detail that stuck with me for some reason. Not the betrayal, not the violation, but the fact that my brother was so eager to sleep with my girlfriend that he couldn't be bothered to take off his socks first. Kevin tried to speak first. "Dude, I can explain." I held up my hand, didn't say a word. The Thai food was still in my other hand, getting heavier by the second. I walked calmly to the dresser, set the food down carefully, turned around, and walked back down the stairs. Grabbed my laptop from the home office, my important documents from the filing cabinet, passport, birth certificate, social security card, the title to my car, grabbed my phone charger from the living room, left everything else. The whole thing took maybe 5 minutes. I didn't yell, didn't throw anything, didn't give them the dramatic confrontation they were probably expecting. Just systematically collected what mattered and walked out the front door. Got in my car, backed out of the driveway, and drove away while they were still upstairs, probably trying to figure out what just happened. I drove to an extended stay hotel near my office, and checked in for a week. The guy at the front desk could probably tell something was wrong. I was wearing my work clothes, carrying a laptop and and a folder of documents and nothing else. But he was professional enough not to ask questions. Just gave me a room key and directions to the parking lot. Then I sat on the generic hotel bed and just stared at the wall for about an hour trying to process what I'd just seen. The beige walls, the polyester comforter, the landscape painting that was probably in 10,000 identical hotel rooms across the country. Everything designed to be inoffensive and forgettable. Perfect setting for the death of a relationship. My phone started blowing up around 4 p.m. Isabel first, then Kevin, then my mom. I ignored all of them, turned off my phone completely and sat in that hotel room in complete silence, feeling nothing and everything at the same time. The shock was like anesthesia. I knew I should be feeling something, but there was just this cold numbness spreading through my chest. The next morning, I went to work like normal, changed into the spare shirt I keep in my car for emergencies, finger combed my hair, walked into the office at 8 a.m. sharp, told my boss I was dealing with a personal situation, and might need some flexibility over the next few weeks. He was understanding. One of the benefits of being a reliable employee for 5 years is that people give you the benefit of the doubt when you need it. "Take whatever time you need," he said. "We'll manage." During my lunch break, I finally checked my phone. 47 missed calls, 83 text messages. The progression was fascinating from a psychological standpoint, like watching someone go through the stages of grief, but in reverse. Isabel's messages started with panic. "Please call me back. We need to talk. I'm so sorry you saw that." Then moved to justification. "You've been so distant lately. I needed someone who understood me. Kevin was there for me when you weren't. You work all the time and never pay attention to me." Then landed on anger. "You can't just abandon me like this. I have nowhere to go. You're being incredibly selfish. At least have the decency to answer your phone." Kevin's messages were simpler. "Bro, I messed up. Can we talk about this? I know you're mad, but ghosting me isn't cool. Then radio silence after message 6. At least he had the sense to know when to shut up. Mom's messages were the most interesting. Your brother called me very upset. Whatever happened, family works through things together. Call me immediately. This isn't like you to ignore my calls. Kevin says you walked in on something and left without talking. That's not how we handle problems in this family. I texted mom back with exactly 7 words. Kevin slept with Isabel. I'm done. My phone rang 30 seconds later. I let it go to voicemail. She called 6 more times before finally leaving a message that I listened to 3 times because I couldn't quite believe what I was hearing. Honey, I know you're upset. But Kevin explained what happened. He and Isabel developed real feelings for each other. These things happen. You can't just throw away family over this. They didn't mean to hurt you, but sometimes people connect in unexpected ways. Call me back so we can discuss this like adults and figure out how to move forward. These things happen. Like my brother accidentally tripped and fell into my girlfriend. Like this was some unavoidable natural disaster instead of a deliberate betrayal that had probably been going on for months. Real feelings like that justified anything. I didn't call back. Over the next few days, I handled the practical stuff with the same methodical approach I use for tax returns. Talked to my landlord about breaking the lease. Turned out I could with some penalties since only my name was on it. Isabel had never officially moved in as far as the paperwork was concerned. She'd been living there for 18 months, but we'd never updated the lease because I was worried about exactly this scenario. Call it paranoia, call it financial planning, but it saved me a lot of hassle. Gave 60 days notice, paid the penalty fee of 2 months rent, and started looking for a new place. No way was I staying somewhere that now felt contaminated by their betrayal. Changed all my passwords, email, banking, streaming services, everything. Removed Isabel from my phone plan, which saved me $40 a month. Separated our shared Netflix and Hulu accounts. Called the electric company and the internet provider to make sure they knew I'd be moving, and she'd need to set up her own accounts if she wanted to stay. The administrative work of ending a relationship is weirdly therapeutic. It's concrete, definable, something you can actually control when everything else feels chaotic. I hired movers to pack up my stuff from the townhouse while Isabel was at work. Scheduled it for a Wednesday afternoon when I knew she had a full day of appointments. Left everything that was hers or that we'd bought together. The couch we picked out at Ashley Furniture, the coffee table from Target, the kitchen appliances we'd registered for when we were talking about getting married someday. I didn't want a single reminder of the life I'd thought we were building. Found a decent 1-bedroom apartment across town, signed a year lease, moved in within 2 weeks. The new place was smaller, but it was mine. No shared memories, no ghosts of a relationship that had been rotting from the inside. While I was too blind or too optimistic to see it, my parents started calling daily. I'd answer occasionally, keep it brief, give them no ammunition. I'm fine. I'm handling it. I need space. Then I'd hang up before they could launch into whatever speech they'd prepared about family and forgiveness. Then came the family intervention attempt. 3 weeks after I'd walked in on Kevin and Isabel, my dad showed up at my new apartment unannounced. I opened the door to find him standing there with my mom and Kevin all packed into the hallway like some kind of ambush support group. Kevin looked uncomfortable. Mom looked determined. Dad looked tired. We need to talk. Dad said, all of us, like a family. I considered closing the door in their faces. The old me probably would have, but I'd spent 3 weeks thinking about this situation from every angle, and I was curious to hear what justification they'd come up with. Sometimes you need to hear the absurdity out loud to confirm you're not crazy. Fine, come in. We sat in my living room, me and my new armchair that I'd bought specifically because Isabel had hated that style. Then squeezed onto my couch looking uncomfortable. The apartment was sparsely furnished since I'd left almost everything at the townhouse. Just the armchair, a TV on a stand, and some boxes I hadn't unpacked yet. It looked like exactly what it was. Someone starting over from scratch. Mom started with the script she'd clearly rehearsed. Honey, we understand you're hurt. What Kevin did was wrong. I appreciate the acknowledgement, I said, keeping my voice neutral. But he's your brother, and now there's a baby involved. That stopped me cold. The room tilted slightly like the floor had suddenly developed a slope. Excuse me, Kevin looked at the floor. Mom continued, taking my shock as permission to keep talking. Isabel's pregnant. 8 weeks along. Kevin's going to be a father and we're going to be grandparents. This changes everything. 8 weeks. They'd been sleeping together for at least 2 months before I caught them. Probably longer. Every time Isabel had told me she was working late or going out with her girlfriends from work. Every time Kevin had stopped by to borrow tools or grab a drink. All those times I'd thought I was being paranoid for wondering if something felt off. Congratulations, I said flatly. Dad leaned forward, elbows on his knees in that posture that meant he was about to try the reasonable man-to-man approach. Son, Kevin's in a tough spot. He doesn't have savings anymore. Wonder why? I muttered. Dad ignored that. Isabel's job doesn't pay that well, and they're going to need help getting started. Family helps family. That's how we were raised, and that's what we do. I saw where this was going. The script was predictable. No, We haven't even asked anything yet, Mom said, feigning innocence like she hadn't orchestrated this entire conversation. You're about to ask me for money, specifically my inheritance. The answer is no. Kevin finally spoke, and I could hear the practiced quality of his words. Someone had coached him on what to say. Bro, I know I screwed up. I know you hate me right now, and you have every right to, but this isn't about us anymore. It's about an innocent baby, our niece or nephew. Don't you want them to have a good start in life? The manipulation was almost impressive in its transparency. Make it about the baby, not about his choices. Make me the villain for not wanting to fund the consequences of his betrayal. Appeal to my sense of family obligation while completely ignoring the fact that he destroyed our family relationship himself. Let me get this straight, I said slowly, looking at each of them. You slept with my girlfriend, got her pregnant, and now you want me to give you money that our grandparents left specifically for our futures. Money you already burned through once on trucks and Vegas trips and jet skis. That was different, Kevin protested, finally making eye contact. I was young and stupid and made bad choices. This is about providing for my child. I want to be a good father, and that means giving them a stable home and financial security. You're 25. You have a job in sales. Isabel has a job as a dental hygienist. Between the two of you, you make decent money. Figure it out like everyone else does. Mom's voice got sharp, losing the sympathetic tone. Don't be selfish. Your grandparents would be ashamed of this attitude. They believed in family taking care of each other. That one stung, hitting exactly where she intended. Grandpa and Grandma left that money for me to build my future. They trusted me to use it wisely. Nowhere in their will or their letter does it say, give this to Kevin when he makes catastrophically bad decisions. Dad tried the reasonable approach again. Nobody's saying, give him everything, just help them with a down payment on a place. Maybe $30,000 or $40,000. You'd still have plenty left for yourself. It would mean the world to them, and it would show Kevin that you're willing to put family first. Not happening. You're really going to let your brother's child grow up struggling because you're mad about a girl? Mom's disappointment was palpable, hanging in the air like smoke. This is bigger than your hurt feelings. This is about an innocent life. I'm going to let Kevin experience the natural consequences of his choices. Maybe it'll teach him something his parents failed to. The temperature in the room dropped about 20 degrees. You could practically see the frost forming. That's uncalled for, Dad said quietly, his jaw tight. Is it? Because you're sitting here trying to convince me to bail out your golden child after he betrayed me in the worst possible way. You haven't once asked how I'm doing. Haven't acknowledged that I lost a 3-year relationship and a brother in the same day. Didn't check if I needed help moving or finding a place or processing what happened. Just jumped straight to how can we fix this for Kevin like always. Mom stood up, her face flushed. Fine, be selfish. Keep your precious money, but don't come crying to us when you realize you've destroyed this family over dollars and cents. I'm not the one who destroyed anything. They left. Kevin didn't even look at me on the way out. Just followed our parents like a child who'd been told the conversation was over. I sat in my apartment for a long time after they left, wondering if I was being unreasonable, if maybe they were right, and I was letting hurt feelings cloud my judgment. Then I remembered the look on Kevin's face when I caught them. Not remorse, panic, not guilt about what he'd done, fear about what it would cost him. He wasn't sorry for sleeping with Isabel. He was sorry I'd found out and ruined the arrangement they'd had going. The harassment campaign started 2 days later, and it was coordinated in a way that made it clear my family had recruited reinforcements. My phone became a war zone. Extended family members I barely knew were calling to tell me I was being heartless. My Aunt Catherine left a voicemail crying about how families should stick together through thick and thin, how blood is thicker than water, how she was disappointed in how I was handling this. My Uncle Jim sent a long text about Christian forgiveness and turning the other cheek, complete with Bible verses and everything. Isabel's parents got involved somehow, sending me a certified letter about how I had a moral obligation to help their daughter and future grandchild during this difficult time. Apparently, Kevin had positioned this whole thing as me being vindictive and withholding support out of spite because I couldn't accept that he and Isabel had fallen in love. The letter actually used the phrase found true love, like they were star-crossed teenagers instead of two people who betrayed someone who loved them both. The story they were all working from was clearly coordinated. I was the bitter ex who couldn't handle that Isabel and Kevin had found happiness together. I was using my inheritance as a weapon to punish them. I was putting money over family. I was selfish and cold and needed to grow up and let go of my grudge. None of them seemed interested in the actual timeline of events. None of them asked my side of the story. They'd all just accepted Kevin and Isabel's version and run with it. I started documenting everything. Screenshots of messages, recordings of voicemails, which is legal in Colorado with one-party consent, copies of emails and letters, built a folder on my computer titled Family Drama, and just kept adding to it. Part of me thought I might need it someday if things escalated legally. Part of me just needed the validation of seeing their words in black and white. Proof that I wasn't imagining the coordinated campaign to pressure me. My mom tried a different approach. The guilt trip through proxy. She started posting vague Facebook statuses about how hard it is when children abandon their family values, how money changes people, How she was praying for certain people to find their way back to kindness and remember what really matters in life. The comments were predictable. Her friends offering support, asking what happened, her giving carefully worded responses that painted me as the villain without explicitly saying my name. Some people just lose their way when they inherit money. She wrote. They forget that family is forever and possessions are temporary. I'm heartbroken, but still hopeful they'll remember what their grandparents would have wanted. I took screenshots of those, too. The passive aggression was almost impressive. Through mutual friends, I heard that Kevin and Isabel had moved in with my parents. The townhouse had been too expensive without my income covering most of the bills. Isabel admitted to our mutual friend Jenna that she couldn't afford the $1,400 rent on her own, and Kevin was barely making rent at his own place. So, they were sleeping in Kevin's old bedroom with the Star Wars poster still on the wall, saving up for a place of their own. Emphasis on saving, which apparently meant waiting for me to crack under the pressure and hand over money. 4 months into this nightmare, I got a call from my dad. His voice was tired in a way I'd never heard before, missing the usual authority. Your mother had to take on extra shifts at the hospital, he said without preamble. Kevin can't work overtime because Isabel needs help with the pregnancy. The morning sickness is bad and she can't be alone. We're supporting 2 additional adults and getting ready for a baby. It's not sustainable. Sounds difficult. Don't be like that. I'm asking you man to reconsider helping out. Not for Kevin, for your parents who are struggling because we're trying to keep this family together. You chose to take them in. You chose to enable this situation instead of making them figure it out themselves. What were we supposed to do? Let them be homeless? Let our grandchild be born into instability? They're adults with jobs. There are apartments in this city they can afford. They just don't want to live within their means. They want the lifestyle my inheritance could provide, and you're helping them pressure me into funding it. When did you become so cold? This isn't the son we raised. The question hung in the air. When did I become cold? Maybe when I walked in on my brother with my girlfriend. Maybe when my parents immediately prioritized his comfort over my pain. Maybe when my entire family decided that my hurt mattered less than their convenience. Maybe when I realized that being the reliable one meant being the one everyone expected to sacrifice. I'm not cold, Dad. I'm just not setting myself on fire to keep everyone else warm anymore. Grandma and Grandpa left that money to secure my future, not to clean up Kevin's messes. He hung up without saying goodbye. The breaking point came at Thanksgiving. I'd planned to skip it entirely, spend the day alone in my apartment with takeout and football, avoid the drama, maintain my boundaries, protect my peace. But my mom called 3 days before and begged me to come. Her voice had this quality I'd never heard before. Not angry, not manipulative, just genuinely sad. Please, she said. It's been months. We're family. I know things are complicated, but it's Thanksgiving. Let's try to move past this, even if just for a day. Something in her voice made me agree. Maybe I was hoping for an apology. Maybe I just missed the idea of family, even if the reality was currently toxic. Maybe I thought enough time had passed that we could have a civil meal without the inheritance conversation coming up. I showed up at my parents' house at 2 p.m., with a store-bought pumpkin pie from the grocery store bakery, expecting awkwardness, but hoping for civility. Maybe some small talk about work and the weather. Maybe avoiding the elephant in the room for a few hours while we pretended everything was normal. The ambush was immediate and elaborately planned. I walked into the living room to find not just my parents and Kevin, but Isabel sitting there with her hand on her visibly pregnant belly. Both sets of grandparents, my Aunt Catherine and Uncle Jim, and 2 family friends I'd known since childhood. All of them looking at me like I just walked into an intervention, which I suppose I had. The whole setup was straight out of a television drama. A semicircle of chairs, all facing one armchair that was clearly meant for me. Someone had even put out a coffee station and a plate of cookies like this was some kind of corporate retreat. My mom stood up smoothing her sweater. Thank you for coming. We're all here because we love you and we're worried about the choices you're making. I should have left right then, turned around, walked out, driven straight home. Instead, I sat down in the designated armchair furthest from everyone else and said, I'm listening. What followed was 90 minutes of the most coordinated guilt trip I've ever experienced. Each person took turns explaining why I should give Kevin and Isabel money. Like, they divided up the talking points beforehand. My grandmother talked about how family is forever and grudges are temporary. How she and Grandpa had helped their siblings through tough times and never kept score. My grandfather reminisced about lending his brother money to start a business in the 1970s. How it all worked out and the family was stronger for it. My Aunt Catherine shared a story about forgiving her sister for something I didn't quite follow. My Uncle Jim quoted Bible verses about generosity and storing treasures in heaven rather than on earth. Then Kevin stood up and Isabel beside him, her hand still resting on her stomach in that universal gesture of pregnant women everywhere. I know I messed up, Kevin said, and his voice actually cracked with emotion. I know I hurt you in a way that might be unforgivable. I betrayed your trust. I destroyed our relationship. And I understand if you never want to speak to me again, but this, he gestured to Isabel's stomach. This is innocent. This baby didn't ask to be born into complicated circumstances. This child is your family, too. Your niece or nephew. Don't you want them to have a good life, a stable home, the same opportunities we had growing up? Isabel's eyes were red from crying. Or maybe from practice crying. Hard to tell. I never meant for any of this to happen, she said, her voice small. Kevin and I didn't plan to fall in love. It just happened, and I know that doesn't excuse what we did to you, but we can't change the past. We can only try to do right by this baby. And right now, we need help. A place to raise our child. Basic stability. We're not asking for luxury, just a foundation to build on. The room was silent. Everyone watching me, waiting for me to crack under the collective weight of their expectation. I could feel it pressing down on me. The assumptions, the judgment, the certainty that I would eventually give in because that's what the dependable one does. I stood up. I have a question for everyone here, I said calmly, looking around at each face. How many of you asked how I was doing after I found out about Kevin and Isabel? How many checked if I needed support or a place to stay or just someone to talk to? Silence. A few people looked at the floor. Here's what I remember. I caught my brother having an affair with my girlfriend in my bed in my house that I was paying for. I moved out within 2 weeks, started over, rebuilt my entire life. And not one person in this room reached out to see if I was okay. Not one person acknowledged that maybe, just maybe, I was the wronged party here. My mom opened her mouth. I held up a hand. Instead, within weeks, you all rallied around Kevin and Isabel, made sure they had a place to stay, helped them prepare for their future, asked me for money to make their lives easier, told me I was being selfish for not immediately forgiving them, and opening my wallet. And now you've orchestrated this. I gestured around the room to pressure me into funding their choices. It's not about taking sides, my dad said. It's about being a family. You're right. It's not about sides. It's about accountability. Kevin made a choice. Isabel made a choice. Those choices have consequences, and I'm not responsible for managing those consequences for them. I looked at Kevin directly. You got $170,000 from Grandma and Grandpa. Same as me, you spent it all on toys and trips and temporary pleasures. That's not my fault. That's not my problem. And it's definitely not my responsibility to give you more money because you wasted your chance. I looked at my parents. You taught me to be responsible with money, to plan for the future, to honor what Grandma and Grandpa sacrificed for us. I did exactly that. And now you're punishing me for it because Kevin didn't. You're asking me to subsidize his mistakes while he faces none of the consequences of his choices. My grandmother started crying. My mother looked like I'd slapped her across the face. I picked up my store-bought pie, wasn't going to leave that behind, and headed for the door. If you leave now, you're not welcome back, my dad said, his voice hard. I stopped, turned around. The ultimatum hung in the air like a physical thing. Are you seriously giving me an ultimatum right now? Hand over my inheritance or lose my family. We're asking you to be part of this family. That means supporting each other. That's what family does. Supporting each other? Absolutely. Enabling destructive behavior and bad choices. No. There's a difference. And you all stopped seeing it a long time ago. Maybe because it's easier to pressure me than to hold Kevin accountable. I left, sat in my car in their driveway for a solid 5 minutes before driving away, waiting to see if anyone would come after me, waiting to see if someone would knock on my window and say they understood that I was right, that they were sorry. No one did. The next few months were quiet in a way that felt both peaceful and lonely. I blocked most of my extended family on social media, stopped answering calls from numbers I didn't recognize, and focused on building my life. Work was going well. I'd gotten a promotion to senior accountant and a 15% raise, partly because I was putting in more hours without the distraction of a dysfunctional relationship. Started going to the gym regularly and actually seeing results. Picked up cooking as a hobby since I was eating alone most nights anyway. Working my way through a cookbook of simple meals that didn't require feeding 2 people. Reconnected with friends I'd neglected while I was with Isabel. Guys from college who were happy to grab drinks or catch a game without any drama. I heard through a mutual friend that Isabel had a baby girl in early February. They named her something I've already forgotten. One of those trendy names that sounds like it came from a baby name website. Kevin posted photos on Facebook that I didn't look at, but people told me about them anyway. Apparently, she had his eyes and Isabel's hair, and everyone thought she was beautiful. My parents sent me a card announcing the birth with a handwritten note in my mother's careful script. Your niece is beautiful. She deserves to know her uncle. Please reconsider your stance. Life is too short for this kind of division in a family. I didn't respond. In April, my mom showed up at my apartment unannounced. I opened the door around 7 p.m. on a Tuesday to find her standing there looking exhausted in a way that made me concerned despite everything. Are you okay? I asked. Can I come in? We sat at my kitchen table. She looked around at my apartment, the new furniture I'd slowly accumulated, the plants I'd started keeping alive, the framed prints on the walls, The general signs of a life I'd rebuilt without any of them in it. You've done well for yourself, she said quietly. I'm managing. I know. She folded her hands on the table, studying them. I've been thinking a lot about Thanksgiving, about what you said. I waited, not giving her anything to work with. You were right. We didn't check on you. We were so focused on managing the situation with Kevin and Isabel that we forgot you were hurting, too. She looked up at me and I saw genuine regret in her eyes for the first time. I'm sorry about that. Sorry. A mother should care for all her children equally, especially when one is hurt. And I failed you. It was the first real apology I'd gotten from anyone. I appreciate that, but I'm still asking you to reconsider. Not about the money, about the family. Your niece should know her uncle. Kevin wants to make amends, even if he doesn't know how to say it. Things are hard right now, and we could all use Mom. Stop. She stopped. I accept your apology for not checking on me. That does mean something, and I appreciate you saying it, but I'm not coming back. Not to the family dynamics where Kevin's mistakes get managed and mine get judged. Not to the expectation that I'll sacrifice myself to make everyone else comfortable. I tried that for 28 years and it only hurt me. So, you're just going to cut us all off? Never see your niece? Never talk to your brother again? I'm going to protect myself and my peace. If that looks like cutting you off, then yeah, I guess I am. She stood up to leave. At the door, she turned back one last time. Your father's disappointed. He expected better from you. The old me would have felt that like a knife. The new me just shrugged. Dad's been disappointed in me since I wasn't Kevin. I can live with that. That's not fair. He loves you both equally. Neither is anything that happened in the last year. But here we are dealing with unfair situations and making choices about how to move forward. She left. I haven't seen her since that day. Though she still sends cards for my birthday and Christmas with short notes hoping I'm well. It's been 8 months now since that conversation. Life is remarkably peaceful in ways I didn't expect. I heard Kevin and Isabel finally moved into their own apartment in July, a 1-bedroom in a rough part of town where they got a deal on rent, but it's theirs. My parents still help with babysitting several days a week and probably with money, too. But that's their choice. They're enabling the same patterns that got Kevin here in the first place, but I'm not responsible for teaching them that lesson. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you really like our videos, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Have a great day.